Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. I'm Lorcan Doherty and today we're talking about Maria Branyas. Maria Branyas Morera has lived through 2 world wars, the Spanish Civil War, the Franco dictatorship, and not 1 but 2 global pandemics. In January this year, 2023, she became the oldest verified living person in the world. And just last week, on the 4th of March, she celebrated her 116th birthday. Per molts anys, Maria. On today's podcast, we're going to hear an interview recorded by Catalan News with Maria in 2019. And we're speaking to Sam Green, an American filmmaker who for the last 7 years has been working on a documentary called The Oldest Person in the World. He recently travelled to Catalonia to record with Maria. I'm joined today by Guifré Jordan. Hello, Guifré.
Hi, Lorcan. Pleasure to be with you.
Not in person, unfortunately. A little injury, so we're doing this over Zoom. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, well, I twisted my ankle yesterday playing basketball. You know, another day in the office getting injured, but still.
Yeah. And today's topic, Maria Branyas, is, so since January, she's the oldest person in the world. But as we'll hear, you've been kind of following her and, you interviewed her quite a few years ago.
Absolutely. I'm an absolute fan of Maria Branyas. So I'm just delighted to be here in this podcast to talk about Maria Branyas because, I kind of discovered her or something like that 4 years ago when no one knew anything about Maria Branyas. And she was only 112 years old.
Yeah.
But I saw some special thing about her.
And look at her now, 116 years old, the oldest person in the world, just celebrated her birthday. A lot of candles. I wonder, did they actually light 116 candles? I'm guessing not.
Hope not.
But tell us a little bit about her, like right back to the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so maybe some of you have already done the math. She was born on March the 4th, 1907, to a Catalan family in San Francisco, actually, in the US, in California. And she just came to Catalonia when she was 8. That's the first surprise, She's an American-born person who, as you said, Lorcan, a couple of months ago, on January 17th, became the oldest living person on the planet. Isn't that amazing?
It's unreal. And she's Catalan.
Yeah, and well, we have to say that she's the oldest person on the planet in the list of verified people, let's say. There's an organization called Gerontology Research Group that has been a major source for Guinness World Records oldest person status for over 20 years. And they are verifying that the age that you say is true. And in Maria's case, it is like this. There's no one older than her on Earth, basically.
And so you said earlier this year, she kind of took over that title after Sister Andre, a French nun who lived to 118. She died on January 17th. So Maria Branyas now, the title has passed to her. And I was just kind of thinking, what age was Maria when certain things happened, certain famous things in 20th century history? And if you go back, when the Spanish Civil War broke out, so that's 1936, she was already 29.
It's insane. I mean,
if we think about the moon landing in 1969, Maria was watching that as a 62-year-old woman.
So she was almost an elderly person, and that is over 50 years ago. That's insane.
And when the Berlin Wall fell, Maria was 82. Just incredible.
And we're missing one, actually. She was 7 when the First World War, not the Second, the First World War broke out. Yeah. She was already alive and she was 7.
And Guifré, she got married all the way back in 1931.
Exactly. So almost 100 years ago. It was a bit of a messy day, actually, in July 1931 when she married in Girona. So the wedding was supposed to happen at noon, but it ended up happening at 7 p.m. Why? Well, basically because the priest that had to marry her and her husband-to-be died actually a few hours before the wedding had to take place. So they had to find a new priest, and they managed to do it on the same day, but with a few hours delay. For Maria Branyas, though, she was not in a hurry. I mean, she's still alive 100 years later almost. So
unbelievable. Her husband died 46 years ago. She's got children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
Yeah, she told us she had 3 children. One of them passed away. And in 2019, she also said that she had 11 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren.
Well, for the last 20 years or so, Maria has lived in a care home in Olot. And Guifré, you went to visit her in 2019, as we said. I'm wondering, she wasn't the oldest person in the world then. So what made you go?
Definitely. She was the oldest person in Catalonia, but I mean, she was 112, which is like obviously a very decent age. But she was not a record woman like now or anything like that. But, you know, it was August and, you know, all newspapers, all media outlets need some fresh, light stories to fill a little bit August, which is like
bit of filler.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very quiet month here in Catalonia. So I went all the way from Barcelona to Olot, which is like almost in the Pyrenees. So it's like over an hour north by car. And I found a story that I didn't expect, and I'm so proud of having been able to do that.
Okay, well, let's take a listen. This is Maria Branyas back in 2019, recorded in the Santa Maria d'Altura care home.
Olot, close to the Pyrenees, is the capital of La Garrocha, a county that hides an ancient secret. Some 40 volcanoes that have been common and active for thousands of years. The area is also home to another old but far more lively treasure, Maria Branyas, the oldest person on Earth.
És una altra manera de viure. Sí, ara la gent viu d'una altra forma.
In August 2019, I went to visit her at Santa Maria d'Altura care home, where she has spent her past 2 decades. And the first question was compulsory. How have you reached such a grand old age?
De vegades és una vida ordenada, socialment molt agradable.
With an orderly life, Maria tells me. Very pleasant socially and, well, a life without excesses.
Sense excessos.
Maria was very well taken care of by her daughter and son-in-law, together with the care home's director. With a little help from them, she was able to stand up and walk a bit, keeping active and full of motivation to keep going.
Per tirar endavant l'amor dels fills i el veure que tots estan sants.
Love for my children, to see they are all safe and well. That's why I carry on, Maria says. For the younger ones too, teenagers going to university, starting a new life. Let's see what they find. They'll have to make a big effort to fight for this new life, she says.
Per la vida que es presenta.
Maria was somewhat pessimistic about the present, saying there are no leaders with enough talent to lead politics, and everything nowadays is all about money. She was nostalgic about the past, but at the same time acknowledged communication is much easier now than when she was a child.
Ara és facilíssim, i antes era molt difícil.
And speaking of a century ago, she also told me of her earliest memories, a journey by ship from the US to Catalonia in 1915 in the middle of World War I.
Alemanya estava atacant encara al nord.
At the time, Germany was attacking the north, Maria says, and the transatlantic ship could not cross the northern seas, but had to go south, through the Azores, Cuba, and so on. She still remembers the journey because it was life-changing for her. While playing with her brother on board, she fell from the upper deck to the lower one and became deaf in her left ear after damaging her eardrum. Tragically, her father died of tuberculosis also on board. Her mum, seeing herself alone with 4 kids, decided to settle in Catalonia, where the family was originally from. A new life was starting for Maria 108 years ago, and it's still going and going and going.
Maria Branyas, thanks very much to Maria for speaking to us back in 2019, and big thanks to her daughter Rosa, who helped set up the interview, and all the staff as well at the care home there in Olot. Guifré, I mean, quite a unique experience, no? One to tell your own grandkids about?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I didn't expect a person who was able to express herself that brightly and that normally. She even walked to the place where we recorded the interview. She was, making jokes and so on. And the funniest thing happened after the interview. I was so proud about the interview. I thought there was some interesting notes there. But on the other end, I'm not sure if she thought the same because, she actually said to her daughter, literally in front of me and without mumbling or anything, she just said it aloud. She said something like, this journalist is such a beginner, So, and I thought, no surprise. Everyone is a beginner compared to Maria Branyas, Of course, obviously, she's 80 years older than me, so...
That's brilliant. And the photos and the videos that you took that day, I've seen them crop up in media in Catalonia, but also internationally and stuff. It's
Absolutely, yeah. Especially after May 2020, when we got this news of Maria Branyas becoming the oldest person on Earth having had COVID-19. This headline, was everywhere in all international media, a 113-year-old getting COVID and surviving COVID with just light symptoms. That's what her relatives told us. And, we are a news agency, the Catalan News Agency, and loads of media outlets from everywhere in the world asked for some images and footage and so on.
Yeah.
So it was unbelievable to get such an enormous attention.
As I mentioned earlier, the second global pandemic that Maria lived through, she also lived through the 1918 flu pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic as well. For her, it was just
Absolutely.
just another pandemic. One of these again.
Nothing new for her.
Come around every century.
116, that's incredible.
So since she became the oldest person in the world, she's not really doing any more interviews, not because of health issues or anything, just I think her family are like, okay, well, there's so much attention that she doesn't need it at this stage in her life. So we weren't able to speak to her for this podcast. But she was kind enough to get back to a questionnaire we sent her.
Exactly. Basically, in this questionnaire, she was downplaying the fact that she is the oldest person on Earth. How can you downplay this? But she did. She did.
Yeah, because we said, so, what does it mean? And, all these people around the world talking about you. And she's like, no, I don't think it's that important, basically, she said. It's just something that's happened to me.
Yeah. And she just said that is due to her genes, to her luck, being lucky. And also, she's led a good diet throughout her life. And as we heard in the interview, she was highlighting the importance of getting on well with family and friends.
She did tell us about some of her first memories.
Yeah, she told us that some of her earliest memories were in New Orleans, where her family moved from San Francisco. And she remembers a big park in New Orleans, Audubon Park. So it's amazing how she can remember this. And she also remembers her first years in Catalonia when she got to Catalonia, to Banyoles. The family settled in Banyoles.
We asked her a very important question, given it was her birthday, which was, does she like cake?
Absolutely. And she said that she loves sweets, she loves cakes and anything sweet, especially chocolate, and why not accompany this chocolate cake with a little bit of coffee? We
mentioned already that Maria lived through COVID. She had COVID. But in fact, she lent her name to a research project about COVID as well, Guifré.
Exactly. There is a pharmacy called Farmàcia de Dalt in Vilassar de Dalt, not very far from Barcelona, that started a study getting loads of data from their patients, mostly people in care homes, and they decided to analyze all this data in order to get some conclusions on why some people get some serious condition after getting COVID, why some people get a milder COVID, why some people die, why some don't even get COVID. So they analyze, where they live, how they feel, actually, like the social part of it, the emotional part of it. They also analyze their genes and their background and everything.
And they called it the Branyas Project, Proyecto Branyas.
Exactly. Because it was their oldest patient. They didn't even know that she was so famous. That's what they told us. And I forgot to say, they are not doing it on their own. That's impossible. But they are doing it with UAB, University in Barcelona, and with CSIC researchers in Madrid.
Maria is 116 years old. She has a Twitter account. It's brilliant. Her name, Super Avia Catalana, which means, well, you can tell us.
Yeah, like Catalan super granny, let's say.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Her handle is at Maria Branyas 112, how old she was when she set up the account. And her biog is...
Soc bella, molt bella, però no idiota.
So I'm old, very old, but not an idiot.
But not an idiot, exactly.
And it's great. It's full of little tidbits and photos from early in her life. And I mean, one interesting thing is that she's never had any serious illness or any surgery.
Exactly. She treated that once. That's incredible. However, 6 months ago or so, she tweeted that she had fallen, actually, and that she got some injury in her eyebrow, and she had to go to the hospital, and she got 8 stitches. But I mean, she was fine after all.
Not bad for a super centenarian.
Exactly.
If that's the worst thing that's happened to her.
Yeah, pretty much. No, but this Twitter account is amazing. You can find out more about her life. For instance, we know that she loves dogs. She used to play piano until the age of 108.
Wow.
So
I saw a photo of her when she was very young with a violin as well. So at Maria Branyas 112, if you want to give her a follow. I mentioned that she's a super centenarian. For anyone wondering, that means over 110 years old. So over 100, centenarian, over 110, super centenarian. So since Maria became the oldest person in the world, she hasn't been doing interviews. So we couldn't speak to her now for this podcast, but we did the next best thing. We spoke to the only person who has. American filmmaker Sam Green is currently working on a documentary called The Oldest Person in the World. Naturally enough, he came to Catalonia to speak to Maria Branyas when that title passed to her.
It was funny because I'm making a film about the oldest person in the world. So I've filmed every person who has that title for the past 8 years. So I've done this a number of times, and with Maria Branyas, we got in touch with her daughter probably a year ago. And she had said then, like, come film, it's fine. But then when she got the title, they said, we're not doing any more interviews. And I thought that it meant that Maria Branyas her health had gone downhill. They didn't want people to see her in that state, which sometimes is the case. But Rosa, her daughter, said, after we went back and forth a little, said, okay, I already told you could come, so you can come, but nobody else. So when we went, I expected her to be very, asleep all the time or not. And so I was so pleasantly surprised when she's wonderful and sharp, and she's funny, and she's great. So I was really impressed, because it's just that Rosa doesn't want her to spend her last days answering the same goddamn question from every journalist all around the world, which makes a lot of sense. I'm self-conscious about asking all the ridiculous questions that everybody always asks, like, what's the secret? Everybody wants to know the secret. And I loved Maria Branyas is so great. She just said it's genetic, which mostly it is. It started because I made a documentary about the Guinness Book of Records. And as I was working on, one of the records I liked was the oldest person in the world. And as I was working on that, I had to keep changing the oldest person in the world because it kept changing, and it's a record that changes pretty often. The people get the title and then they die. And I'm going to keep doing it for my whole life. But every once in a while, I'll make a film and I'll put it out, but the minute you make a film, it'll be out of date very quick. So I'll keep working on it, and I'll keep, in 5 years, I'll make one version, and then in 10 years, I'll make another. And it'll be like a ever expanding film. I'm sure you look at Maria Branyas' Twitter. So the first version will come out in probably 2025. And they tweeted after we were there Sam Green came to talk with us, and his movie will come out in 2025, and I will be at the premiere. One of the things I like about this is the oldest person in the world is sort of odd and goofy. Everybody's interested. And every time the person dies, there's a little article in the paper that says like their secret, and something about them. So in that sense, it's something that everybody can relate to. But to me, it's a window onto other ideas that are also universal ideas. We all age. We're all gonna die. We all are puzzled by what happens when you die. We all are puzzled by the mystery of fate. Why do some people live very long and some people don't? It's all a mystery. And I think the oldest person in the world allows us to think about that. And also think about the fact that time passes and certain things are part of a lived memory, and then they're gone. They're in the past and nobody remembers them. And I think that there's something very profound about that. And so I like the movie and the topic because on one hand it's sort of silly, but on the other hand it's rich, and it speaks to things that are part of our experience of being alive. The mystery of our experience of being alive, that everybody kind of chews over, and we're all slightly unsettled by it, but it's also part of life.
Thanks very much to Sam Green. TheOldestPerson.com is the website of the documentary that he's working on. Interesting concept, that kind of a work in progress. He's going to bring out one version, going to bring out another version.
Absolutely. I'm amazed at this project, and I'm very glad to hear that Maria Branyas is still sharp. I thought the same when I got to speak to her 4 years ago. I thought she was like, very alive, let's say, and she remains in good health. I'm very glad to hear.
Great to see. Now, we were looking at some stats, and while obviously living to 116 is, pretty unique, there are more and more people that are living to over 100. In Catalonia, in 2021, there were 2,280 centenarians. And the interesting thing is that's 16 times more than in 1981. So just 4 decades ago, there were only 140 people who were over 100. There are just 9 countries in the world that have more centenarians per capita. Maybe no surprise to learn that Japan is number 1 by quite a distance, actually.
But you found some surprise there in this ranking, Lorcan, didn't you?
Yeah, well, after Japan, it's Portugal and then Ireland. And being from Ireland, but I had no idea that we were kind of so highly ranked in that. So it's interesting.
Some hope for you there.
Speaking of records and things like that, Guifré, there's a few milestones coming up for Maria as well.
Exactly. So I think it's around the 21st of April when she will be 116 years and 48 days, actually. And this means that she will surpass the oldest person that has ever lived in Catalonia and across Spain. Annabella was a person who was a Catalan resident, and she lived to this very old age of 116 years and 47 days. So Maria is about to surpass Annabella. And she still has like a little bit of a long shot, but still another record, another milestone to set, which is the oldest verified person that has ever existed on Earth. And this is just 6 years away. This person called Jean Calment, who was from France, from the Provence area, lived from 1875 to 1997. That is 122 years. So, it's just in 6 years' time.
Maria is just a whippersnapper compared to her. Time now for our Catalan phrase. What's it this week, Guifré?
És de l'any de la picor. That's a very funny one.
Is the land de la picor? I don't know what the picor is. It's the year of something.
Yeah, it'd be something like it is as old as the year of the itch. And you have to know, Lorcan, that in 1471 there was a plague of fleas in Catalonia, and everyone was scratching all the time, desperately because of these fleas, So when we refer to something being de l'any de la picor, it's like it's super old. But we can say that Maria Branyas fits in this phrase.
It's the land de la picor. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks very much, Guifré, for joining me.
Pleasure, Lorcan.
Get well soon. I hope we'll see you in person soon.
Hopefully.
Thanks to Maria Branyas and to her family, especially her daughter Rosa, and all the staff at our care home in Olot. Thanks as well to Sam Green, and thanks to you for listening. We're back again next Saturday with another episode of Filling the Sink. Until then, from me, Lorcan Doherty, and all of us here at Catalan News, bye for now. Adeu.